Welcome to the Global Messaging Podcast. This week's episode features Chris Cornell.
There's a saying, an attitude of gratitude creates an abundance of blessing. And whatever blessing that we might need, if we have an attitude of gratitude, God's going to bring that to us. If we need a blessing of hope, of encouragement, faith, joy, peace, whatever it is, if we have an attitude of gratitude, it doesn't mean that the circumstances are going to change immediately, but with that attitude of gratitude for thankful what God has done for us, then there's going to be an abundance of blessing of some sort. And those blessings aren't just for us. I mean, partially for us, but they're a blessing for everybody around us. The things that we've gone here, I've been blessed so much by what other people have shared or what other people have gone through. I'm so thankful for that. There's another, like a little story that I heard a while ago, and it's not a spiritual story, but it's got a good spiritual application about this horse that fell in this really big hole. And he didn't break his legs or anything. He was okay. But after a few hours, he was kind of wondering, am I going to get out of this hole? Well, pretty soon the shadow kind of appears above in the hole, and he looks up, and it's the owner. He's like, oh, man, everything's going to be great. I'm going to get out of here. Well, a few minutes later, he feels something land on him. And the owner is shoveling dirt on him. I was like, what? Am I going to get buried here? So he's thinking from hope to salvation that this is it. They're going to bury me alive. So after its dirt started getting kind of high, the horse kind of kept shaking their dirt off. And he kind of started stomping on it. And pretty soon the ground started kind of getting firm under him. And then the more dirt that the owner was shoveling on him, the more he could, shake it off and start stumping on the ground. And pretty soon, after a while, he was slowly climbing his way up. So you could think when the enemy is throwing dirt on us or the world is throwing dirt on us, maybe we should be thankful because, God's using those circumstances to build up our strength and to get us out of a hole or just to refine us. But in reality, he's using things that the enemy might use against us, but God, if we have the right perspective that maybe God's trying to help me in this situation, we can turn around so it can be a blessing. And again, those blessings aren't just for us, but those are for the people around us. In Psalms 62:1, or 61, actually, 62:1. So my heart seems like it's beating. At least I'm glad that I didn't get asked to start the service this morning, because normally when I'm running, my heart rate's between 120 to 160, but right now it's about 280. So Psalm 62:1 through 3, just a few verses, says, "Truly my soul silently waits for God. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved." Again, that first verse says, "Truly my soul silently waits for God." Sometimes there's some really stressful situations or very dire circumstances that come into our lives, but I try not to stress about it. I try to wait on the Lord and enter into I need that peace first when I pray for things. And it's so easily nowadays, it can be easily, if you're listening too much to the world, what's going on in the world, to get distracted and not have that peace. I don't know if it was Elijah or Elisha talked about the whirlwind and the hurricane or the earthquake and something else, but God wasn't in that. He was speaking in the silence. So we really have to even more now, be careful to have our souls silent unto the Lord so we can truly hear what he's saying. There's a lot of false in the world, it seems like in the Christian world, but in the media and the news, there's all this doom and gloom. Even one of the national news companies has the doomsday clock. And it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, so it's like, I'm wondering how things are going in the world. I'm going to go check on this website and see what the doomsday clock says, So, but, it's really, I went there to check it out. It's like, yeah, for sure. It's kind of there. Once in a while, about every few months, it'll appear, or once a year. So it's just kind of interesting. So these false prophets. I'd like to share a couple of little testimonies to go in. Brenda shared this morning about God is working while we are praying. I've shared this testimony a few years ago, but it just kind of reminds me, again, there was a situation in our family where some accusations were made towards another family member, and it really divided the family for several years. It wasn't bitterness there, but there was a great divide there. And we wanted to believe both sides of the family, but it's hard, to try to work that line. And this went on for quite a few years, family gatherings or the holidays, we couldn't do stuff together. School I worked at, I was raking up needles and pine cones and branches, just to kind of clean up. It's a huge Doug fir just outside one of the main buildings. So I was cleaning that up, and I just prayed that day. I just asked God for some sort of resolution to the situation. But I just specifically asked God that there would be somehow, some way, in this really difficult situation, as severe as it was, that God would provide some conclusion to it, some sort of closure, some answers to it, so that the family could come together and move on. So that was like mid-morning sometime, and so later that evening I got home and I got a call or text message from one of the family members, and on that day they had received a letter in the mail from the party that had made the accusations, saying that they had lied about the accusations they had made. So God had answered it before I even prayed for that situation. And it's like, that very day I was flabbergasted, but we shouldn't be surprised, but, that does surprise us sometimes. And God doesn't always answer prayers like that, but He does answer prayers like that. And He was already in the process. And it was years that this was going on and took place. It wasn't an immediate answer. And I'm sure there's still hurt there. It takes time to heal some of the hurt. But there's no forgiveness. There's no schism in the family. We can get together now. And even that in itself is a miracle for what this other family member went through. And then another family just recently, a member for several years, had a drug and alcohol problem. That's other family members have had it. And we didn't know if my nephew would live. We didn't know if he'd commit suicide, accidental drug overdose, killed by a drug dealer. He was homeless, kind of in and out of jail a little bit, not a lot, nothing major. But we wouldn't hear from him for months, or my sister wouldn't hear from him for months. They didn't know where he was at, if he was even still alive. But I would pray for him, every day. I prayed that the Holy Spirit would witness to his soul, somehow, some way, not like this overreaching, I am God, I'm here to speak to you, but that just God would just witness a little bit, give him a little hope, a little bit of encouragement, and also that spare his life, mercy and grace for his life. God's grace, who knows where I would be, family history or genetics and different things like this. And I don't judge anybody that's had addictions or trouble. So that was my prayer. I just pray it constantly, that God would just be with him, keep him safe, and that he may not recognize it personally on a spiritual level, but he would hear God's voice just reaching to him wherever he was, whatever situation was, no condemnation, no judgment, but he would just know that he has been called some way, And then this past Father's Day, just a few months ago, we found out that he was doing much better. He was in a recovery home, and we actually got to see him on Father's Day. He had lunch with the family, and so he's got a full-time job. He looks so much better. It's just a bright smile on his face. We still pray for him because, it's just been recently, but he was in jail for a while. Nothing major, but it was just enough to keep him in jail for a little while, but he's doing really good in the home he's at. And it's pretty independent living, so that's very good. So they have someone that kind of helps monitor a little bit, but other than that, they kind of have their own space. So it's important that we don't listen to the enemy, because he's going to try to get to us any way, any shape, any form he can get to create doubt or fear. But just if we're silent unto the Lord, that we can really truly pray And I need to do it more. This is just a preaching to myself as sharing to you. And as in prayers for other too, it's like it feels like these are the last days, for sure. But we don't know for sure, but it sure seems like it. And I really struggle with that sometimes, just to hear the news and different things going on. It's like, man, how much longer do we have? 5 weeks, 5 days, 5 years? But there's still prayers that haven't been answered, at least in my life, for people. And I truly believe there's things that God has for us. And I think it's, to me, the scripture about being silent unto the Lord is really blocking out the world. It says, Jesus tells us, warns us of these things. He says, because he doesn't want us to be unaware of them. We have to be spiritually in tune, but we also don't have to be overwhelmed by them, but to be aware of what's going on. It says these things must come to pass. So I don't want to give up praying for these different situations in my life. A couple examples, if you'll let me. One of my friend's name is Bill. He's not a Christian. He's got tattoos, some piercings, and he does running, but he can't run anymore. He tried to run last year. He's got back problems. He has no cartilage in his knees. So the pain is just excruciating, and he tries, he wants to, but he's just not able to do it. And he did last year, but it kind of really messed him up for months. I mean, he started running again. He was doing pretty good, but he went too hard, and then he was back getting some knee surgery and other things. But we've had some really good talks over the years. Nothing spiritual. We give each other a hard time. We tease each other, just enough as guys do. But we had just this kind of fellowship, per se, just some good, deep conversations about life and reality and things like that. And one of my marathons a few years ago, he actually took time out of his day to meet me on the course, even though he can't run or he's struggling with his health. He took time, and then about 8 miles further, he's out there with his dog. They're part of this college campus, and he's with his dog cheering me on again. I mean, he drove from one part of Portland to trying to get around to another place where he could meet me again and cheered me on there. And then I think he even went to another spot, like about 3 miles from the finish line, to cheer me on. So this guy he's not a Christian, he's got health issues. He can't even be out there running, but he's out there cheering me on. So it's such a blessing. And then not this past October, but a couple of years ago, he was back out there again. He had a lady friend, and she was running the half marathon, and her daughter was running the half marathon. And so I saw him, I gave him a big hug, but I was not feeling it that day. I think I had fighting a little fever or a cold or something for the few days, and then I had like a leg injury that I kind of nursed back to health. But after mile 8, I was like, man, things aren't going so good. And sure enough, by mile 14, I was like, hit the wall, but I still had, 12 miles to go, so I made the best of it. But, he's still out there. He meets me back at this college place on the college campus, and he runs with me like 2 blocks. And he can't run, but he's out there encouraging me. So it's been a blessing to me, even though he's not a Christian. I've been praying for him for years, just that God somehow, someday would bless him. I pray that God would keep him until that time, whether, like I say, through a prayer or the healing touch of God or for medicine. I don't know, but it's just a burden in my heart. I don't want to give that up. I don't want to see that opportunity lost. Make sure my life is right with God. So if that opportunity does come, that I can minister to him in some way, for sure. And then another friend with running community, and I've kind of known him for quite a few years, but we lost contact. And just 2 years ago, we get met up again to do some running. And he's married, got 2 kids. The oldest is 21, I think, 22. And then their boy, he's 19. And he was born fine. Great kid, just bouncing, happy, yelling, screaming, little baby boy. But around 3 or 4, he started having some seizures. And he was kind of like really autistic. And he had a video I saw years ago where the locks and the stuff they have to have on the house to keep him from getting out of the house, he could, like, the narrow doorway, he could actually shimmy up the door and get above the door and unlock the lock so he could get out of the house. So he still has those challenges with his son trying to run away or different outdoor circumstances, but he has grand mal seizures on a regular basis. And that's like almost a daily, every other day, these 5-10 minute seizures. Every time, they don't know if he's actually going to live. And we've talked a little bit over time, enough that, he's talked about it a little bit over time to share. It's like, would it be better if he didn't come out of one time? But he said, no, we keep hoping. We keep, hoping for, that he'll get better, through medicine mostly. So I pray for him, his son, on a regular basis, that somehow God would touch his son, either through medicine or the healing hand of God. And I don't want those opportunities to be lost, because there's nothing coincidental in our lives. From the minutest detail, the things that don't seem like there's anything there, that God is really orchestrating and moving these things unknown. Do we have in Jesus Christ to continue to work in our lives, to give us all that we need, not more than we need, but all that we need to encourage us. And I'm so blessed to be here with all the testimonies and words of encouragement. So anyways, God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Global Missions Inc. podcast. For more information, please visit our website at www.globalmissionsinc.org.